Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune. We have Spencer Fortside on the board for us right now. And it's OU Texas weekend. It doesn't feel like it, but it is, folks. It is OU Texas weekend. I will be heading down Friday morning. Parker, you'll be heading down Friday as well, I'm assuming.
I'm actually going to be headed down tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow, that's right. Yep. You're covering games down there. I'm going to watch Jacoby Johnson, Malachi Miller, and a couple other guys at Edmond Santa Fe tomorrow before I head out. Kids stuff, they got football practice and everything too. So that comes first here. But
I don't have any of those yet.
Yeah, kids, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that yet. That's true. Very true. It is OU Texas weekend. It doesn't feel like it though, does it? Like it just feels weird.
We need another cringe Matthew McConaughey hype video for it to really feel like OU Texas weekend.
I missed that. Does that happen last year?
That happened last year. Did you never see that video?
It. I probably did. I probably just don't remember it.
Treat yourself. Google.
I thought the one Teddy did was really good.
Google Matthew McConaughey OU Texas video.
I thought the one Teddy did was good.
Yeah, I'll give you a hint right now. I'll just give you a little bit of a spoiler. The video includes Matthew McConaughey saying the words "flick your own switch."
Yes. I just got sent a picture of, I guess OU put it out, but right in the far. Go look at OU's Twitter page. Go look at the photo and look in the far right. Look who's taking snaps.
Okay. I guess apparently the YouTube chat is blowing up because my lava lamp isn't on again. I'm sorry. I failed you again. My apologies.
And he's got shoulder pads on too, by the way. That's interesting.
Oh, hello. Does he have pads on?
Yes, I have a screenshot of it. I have a still screenshot of it.
So
definitely has shoulder pads on.
I guess that's where we start. And we'd mentioned it earlier in the week, but looks like there's a decent chance Dillon Gabriel plays after all.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that just yet, but I mean, all signs are pointing pretty good right now, right?
Yeah, and the fact that he was
they probably didn't even think about that. Yep.
Yeah. The fact he was at practice Monday, though not in pads, would lead you.
But they don't do pads on it's Mental Monday. It's a lot of walkthroughs and stuff like that.
But more his presence there would lead you to believe that instantly puts him ahead of schedule. The fact that he didn't miss a day of practice, at least as far as being present is concerned. Now, I think it also speaks to the positivity of the situation, if you want to call it that. The fact that Oklahoma moved practice indoors for the rest of the week after that video of Dillon Gabriel at practice hit social media. That tells me what Oklahoma is thinking is Dillon Gabriel is going to play this weekend, but we don't want people to know that. Or we want people to have as little certainty surrounding that situation as possible.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm trying to be positive for everybody this week. I really am. Folks, we're trying to come off positive for y'all, but after what we have seen the last few weeks, it just seems that it's very hard to wrap your head around a big jump. And here's the thing, I don't know. I think fans look at it and they're like, oh my gosh, they got blown up and there was all these misplays and missed assignments and busts. But it was always just one guy. It was never multitude of guys. It was a multitude of it was a multitude of different guys on different plays. Mm-hmm. But it was always just 10 guys doing right, one guy doing wrong. And that one guy just happened to be the one dude that couldn't do wrong, i.e. covering the seam route or covering the go route on the outside or being the last line of resort, you know, up the middle as a linebacker because they had spread you out and your safeties or outside the hash. So there's just a wide open, you know, and the other thing is I thought Teddy and Gabe and like, okay, people hate this and I'm going to do it anyways. Like, so I helped coach my kid's football team and I have for years. And you teach your kids like, and at the most simple age, our kids know punch the outside shoulder on the edge, keep your outside shoulder free. That way you can box. It's basically your boxing. If we want to send a guy inside to shoot the inside gap or slant the inside gap and have a guy coming on the outside, like the backside backer, the front side backer, however you want to call it, coming on the outside blitz, it's called a spill, right? Okay. So 10-year-olds know this. And yet we're watching 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old guys that have been playing football for a decade not do the most simplest form of fundamentals. And that's not the coaches. It's not the coaches because these are the same guys that did this when previous staffs. Like there's talent. The talent is there. The mental IQ of some of these dudes sometimes just aren't there. It's you're smiling, but it's true, Parker. It's true. Like you can walk a dog to the water or a horse to the water. You can't make them drink it. You can't make them drink it. You can get the thoroughbred in shape, but you can't make it run as fast as it wants to during a race, right? It has to do it. Like you can hit it, you can make it, you can push it, you can yell at it, you can do whatever. If it doesn't feel like running, it's not going to run.
Well, and it begs the question, right? You keep hitting the horse and trying to get it to drink, or do you just walk over a different horse? That's kind of the dilemma right now for Oklahoma.
Right.
You keep rolling with the same horses that have gotten burned repeatedly each of the last 2 weeks, or you give a guy here, a guy there, some additional looks that maybe he hasn't gotten thus far this season. And obviously, I think the guys that jump to mind are the likes of Jaron Kanik. Robert Spears-Jennings comes to mind at the safety position. Our Mason Thomas is supposed to be back this week, and I think that's going to be huge for Oklahoma. And I mean huge, because one thing they have not done any of the past 2 weeks is provide pressure on the quarterback. And if nothing else, our Mason Thomas can do that for you. Who would have imagined that leading into OU Texas week, we'd be talking about, aside from Dillon Gabriel, obviously, the biggest potential return from injury being a true freshman edge rusher. But that's the situation right now, because legitimately nobody else can get after the quarterback right now for Oklahoma. So
it's weird.
You'd hope our Mason Thomas can do that when he hits the field again this Saturday.
Yeah, it's weird. And I don't understand it. Like Jalen Redmond is uber talented. I was talking to multiple people that have been at Clemson, have been at Oklahoma, and literally to a man, they all said, or woman, whatever you want to call it. I mean, just a phrase to a man, literally. I know, Ben, but you know, nowadays you just gotta,
you 2022'd yourself right there.
I did. I just didn't want anybody to say, "Ooh, don't be so," whatever. So, but to a man, they were like, outside of all the guys, like this dude, like Jalen Redmond's like one guy that could be at Clemson right now and be like in the rotation, or maybe could start.
Yeah.
And they were dead serious about it and wholeheartedly believed that. And he hasn't played all that bad. Unfortunately, if you go back and watch, he's getting double teamed, sometimes triple teamed, because they don't trust the opponents are like, we'll focus on this dude because we don't think the rest of these guys are going to get back there. And that's got to be like, if you're Reggie Grimes, if you're Josh Ellison or Isaiah Coe, which Isaiah Coe's played well too. Kevin Gillen, any of these guys, that's got to like hit you in the heart, right? Your soul, right? That they're not worried about you. They're worried about 31, nobody else. That's got to anger a lot of these guys and make them want to play up to their ability, because The guys I just named, 4 stars, 5-star guys. Like, what's the holdup? What's the holdup? I don't understand it. And we're 4 days past that game, and I'm still looking at it going, WTF?
Yeah.
Like what's going on?
Well,
I don't know, man.
And we talked about it. We talked about it in the post-game podcast too. But regardless of whether you get Dillon Gabriel back this weekend or not, you could have Kyler Murray in his prime playing quarterback. You could have Baker Mayfield in his prime playing quarterback. And at the end of the day, it's not going to matter if the defense doesn't improve substantially week to week from last Saturday to this Saturday. Because right now the albatross around the Sooners' neck is the fact that they are not executing defensively. And that's manifested itself in a variety of different ways. Obviously, you saw it in coverage last week several times. You saw it in run fits several times. They're not defending the run effectively. They're not defending the pass effectively. They're not defending effectively in general. So you mentioned it earlier, Brandon, the fact that it's always just one guy out of position. And you know what? Maybe at the end of the day, that's all it is. Maybe it's nothing more than chance. Maybe it's that the one guy out of position on any given play just happens to be the one guy for which TCU dialed up a play call and kind of made a point to exploit. Maybe if you got 10 guys all on the same page and one guy that's spaced out this weekend against Texas, it doesn't end up hurting you because that's not where the play's going. But regardless, you're now at the midway point of your season. This is game number 6. You've got to get these things ironed out because, yeah, they're little mistakes, but they're little mistakes that have had a big impact over the last couple of weeks. And as you continue to put more and more tape up and as teams continue to get a better and better idea of what they're going to get, what type of looks they're going to get from Brent Venables' defense in the second half of the year, there are going to be play callers in this conference. And there are several that jump to mind right now. There are going to be offensive coordinators in this conference who take a look at the errors that your defense has made to this point, and they're going to be able to attack them. They're going to be able to go after him and continue going after him. And they're going to be able to beat you into submission by running the exact same plays and concepts and schemes that you have demonstrated an inability to defend. So This is the week where you have to get those errors ironed out because we talked about last week being a must-win game. Obviously, at face value, this is a must-win game for Oklahoma if there has ever been one. But more than that, you really have to get things turned around from a defensive standpoint in particular, because Kansas State presented a roadmap to beating you. I'm not sure whether TCU presented a roadmap as much as they just like Oklahoma gave TCU a lot of points. That's the best way I can put it. Oklahoma gave TCU a ton of points on Saturday. So it was equal parts execution of the game plan and luck for TCU on Saturday. But what you have right now is a roadmap to victory over this Sooners team that's becoming more and more clearly defined. And you can't have that as you hit the home stretch in what is right now a very competitive Big 12. There are no cupcakes on this schedule the rest of the way.
There's this question being posed on the chat right now, and there's a rumor out there, true or false, has the locker room been lost? No, the locker room hasn't been lost. And I don't know where that comes from. Like, I think even if they lost this weekend, I don't think the locker room would be lost. I think you have what I do think is going on is you have older dudes they're trying to buy in. They're trying to force themselves to buy in, but they've been around an old culture with Riley. And that culture, regardless of what people want to believe or not, was toxic. And it was lazy to some extent. And I think it's rearing its head a little bit because they're not winning. So they're thinking, oh, well, the way that we used to do it, at least we won 10, 11 games every year. But that's not fair, because Riley never had to replace 40% of the starting lineup or 40% of the two deep. That never had to happen under his time. He didn't have a bunch to do. And during the transfer portal era, that I think Venables made a calculated decision. He said, we're not going to take a ton of transfers. How many did they end up taking? Like 10, right?
It was 13,
something like that.
I believe. 13 was the
13.
final number.
Okay. 13. Okay. There were programs that took 20, 25 transfers last year. USC being one of them. They processed out guys. Venables came in and said, you know what? I'm going to take this roster. I'm going to add the 2022 class. I'm going to take 10, 12, 13 transfers. And that's what we're going to roll with, because they weren't going to. And let me tell you all this. He had ample opportunity to take from Clemson. Parker can vouch for this. I can vouch for this. There were some big names that wanted to come to Oklahoma, and he did not feel that was correct, because it's just not his way. He's not going to take from the place that he helped build. That's just not how he's going to do it. Now, some people have done that and did that to Oklahoma. It's pretty easy to see. If you turn on television Saturday and you watch Pac-12 after dark, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's not how Venables wants to start. He did not want to take from one of his best friends in Dabo Swinney. He did not want to take from a program that his kids were still there. He did not want to take from a program that he helped build into a national powerhouse. It was a calculated decision. It was a moral decision. And at the end of the day, would they have been better off? Yes. Yes, they would have been better off. But do you want to be better off short term and be known as kind of a jerk for doing those type of things? Or do you want to have some potential bumps in the road and get the talent that you're going to get in the transfer portal, because that's what's available to you, and build your program for long-term success and not short-term success? Because guess what happens with Parker? What happens if you start taking transfer portals over and over and over? You have to continue to do that, right? You can never build off recruiting classes.
And it
just doesn't work.
It's a lot more difficult to establish your own culture.
Correct.
Just taking other programs, guys, and cobbling them together into a virtual all-star team.
Correct. So it may be a 7-5 season, and maybe an 8-4 season. And I wrote this on OU Insider, and I'm going to tell you guys this. Those that aren't VIP members, I'm going to tell you what I said. And Parker, I want to hear your thoughts on this. It may take a 7-5, 8-4 season this year to wake more donors up. Now, there's a lot of donors that have been woken up because of the Riley situation, and you're seeing that through the donations, $300 million or whatever in the last 2 years, and blah, 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 building a $175 million facility, doing all those things. But to build the foundation, cultural foundation, and personnel foundation from the ground up, it may take a 7-5, 8-4, not just to wake up the donors, but to wake up some administration some more, to wake up some of the players some more. Say, hey, I need to kick it in gear if we want to start winning and playing for a national title. Because that's what this coach demands. It's what he wants. Maybe I need to start being in the film room a little bit more. Like there are things that need to happen. And what if it takes a 7-5, 8-4 season for that to happen? I don't think the bottom's going to fall out if that happens. I don't think this recruiting class is going to fall out. I know there's a lot of people that are worried about Colton Vasek. I'm not sitting here saying he's not going to look around or anything like that, but everybody I talk to, including Colton himself, seems pretty locked in still, no matter what, because they trust what he's trying to do long term. Remember, these guys can't sit there, Parker. This is another thing I want to hear your comment on. These guys can't sit there and bash and look around and do this and that because of a loss or 2 or 3 losses, when chances are outside of Colton Vasek and Westlake, because they never lose, they're losing at the high school level. So how hypocritical would it be for them to just jump ship and not trust the process, right? With the coach that just got there year one and basically had to rebuild his roster from the ground up because of all the exit and because of, a coach taking from his roster that he put together when he went out west. Right? I mean, does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. And I think, what you said, Brandon, it's a sentiment that's been expressed and echoed before, that maybe a couple seasons of 7-5, 6-6 might not be the worst thing that's ever happened to this program. And obviously that would suck, right? Obviously that's never the expectation, Norman. And obviously that isn't the type of football, and that isn't the type of standard that Brent Venables returned to establish in Norman. But as we get deeper and deeper into this season, again, you look at the slate the rest of the way, and you look at the fact that it's just a good year for the Big 12, man. And there are a lot of competitive football teams. Who would have imagined that Kansas would be 5-0? Hey, if you told anybody, Brandon, even a month ago, that Kansas was going to be 5-0 and nationally ranked, and that Oklahoma was going to be 3-2 and unranked, Kansas was going to be 19th in the country, and OU was going to be dead last in the Big 12, nobody would have taken you seriously. Nor would anyone have believed that after Kansas State's loss to Tulane, they'd be playing the type of football that they're playing right now, and that they'd be looking the way that they're looking right now as a team. And so looking ahead down the stretch in the Big 12, that's part of the reason why this weekend is so pivotal. And yeah, there's been so much change. There's been so much attrition, and you're you've certainly started to see some chinks in the armor over the past 2 weeks. But man, this week, this game, this opportunity to get back on track against Texas, this could be the difference between starting to get hot, starting to play your best football, starting to work yourself back into Big 12 championship contention, or it could be the difference between that and the wheels falling off, man. Because in years past, I don't think there's nearly as much riding on a game like this, and I don't think momentum or the lack thereof would have loomed as large in the Big 12. But it just so happens that Oklahoma's Valley has come at a time where there are a whole bunch of other teams in this conference that historically over the last decade or so have not been very good, and they're starting to peak. Not the least of which is Kansas. Like, there's a chance, Brandon. Right now, there is a legitimate chance that Kansas is going to come to Norman, Oklahoma next weekend as favorites. That's the world in which we're living.
Weird.
Let's hit some questions. Because
there is one. There's a good one, actually. I'll read you the one that I wanted to pose to you.
Okay.
Why is it that TCU has a new head coach, new OC, and new DC, and they looked far more complete than Oklahoma? And I think the easy answer is they didn't have to replace 40% of their roster like Oklahoma did.
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing. But go ahead.
And also, essentially, that entire TCU coaching staff just came over from SMU. All right. So that's not a motley crew there. That's a whole bunch of guys that have been in the trenches with one another for several years. And I want to emphasize this, and I don't mean to try and soothe the sting of the loss last weekend, because it was a bad loss and it was ugly football. But again, I would pose the question, is TCU that much better than Oklahoma, Or did Oklahoma just make TCU look that much better?
I think the
Because
latter.
again, TCU is not going to have 4 60-plus yard touchdowns handed to them on a platter every single Saturday. And so it's going to be more difficult for them to put up the kind of absurd point totals and yardage totals the rest of the way as they did against Oklahoma. And that's a byproduct not of TCU's offensive scheme, not of the genius of Garrett Riley. And I'm not trying to say that Garrett Riley isn't a genius or that he's not a capable offensive coordinator, but TCU had 6 plays that accounted for 352 total yards of offense. That's not going to be replicated anytime soon.
Yeah, Brent Venables came out and said something like, I think he said like out of, what was it? I think he said something like 85, 86% of their plays were for 3 yards or less. And then it was just, he said 6, 7, 8 plays that just was the chunk of the rest of the offense, the rest of the game. And it looks awfully bad, right? Because when you see that final score, you see the final numbers, it looks like, oh my gosh, they played zero defense. Reality is Oklahoma was pretty good for long portions, and then they would bust. Like just horribly bust. And it would be a big chunk play at 60 plus yards. And that's not an excuse. That's a fact. And it's a bad fact. It's a bad fact that actually happened. Because before that happened, do you remember before the K-State game, do you remember what Oklahoma was lauded for? They were lauded for having the fewest number of 20-plus yard plays against them defensively in the nation.
It's hard to recall that was a thing, but that was definitely a thing.
That was a thing. And Nebraska's not a bad. Nebraska is the best offense that Oklahoma's played this year, and they made them look pedestrian. And yet, the last 2 weeks, you could just see the confidence waning between each possession against K-State. And every time they took a hit, they got more and more down on themselves. It's a here we go again. I've talked to people around Norman, around Oklahoma, and it literally is this bunch is super fragile. They are a fragile bunch because of what they've been through over the last 3 or 4 years. They were hoping they would never have to go through that again. They were going to be tough, successful. They were going to stop people like they did the first 3 games. And the second they got punched in the mouth, it was, here we go again. Here we go again. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And that's the players in their mindset. So for Venables, and his staff, that's got to be frustrating, because how do you get them away from that? Like, I'm asking, how do you get players away from that mindset? Like, what do you do? I don't know.
And that's one of those things, Brandon, where I sit here and say, I'm glad I don't have to be the one to come up with an answer to that question, because I can't. I'm perfectly willing to concede that responsibility to somebody who's been coaching football for 3 decades. And so I don't question that Brent Venables has a solution. I do not, though.
Yeah, no, I don't know, man. It's tough, because when you watch what Nebraska did last week against Indiana, it's like, what? That team looked so bad against Oklahoma, and yet they just owned Indiana. Like, that's weird, man. You win by 21 or 14 or whatever it was, and played really good offensively. And what? Like, how did Oklahoma do that? That is just like, I'm just mind blown, honestly. Mind blown what this team, what's happened to them. I'm mind blown. But they are playing Texas this weekend, Parker. So let's get some Texas questions in here. I don't know if there's going to be.
Okay. No, we have a couple. So
okay.
One viewer asked, with Ewers back, is there even a chance we slow him down? Yeah, that is a chance. There is a chance. Yeah. However, several things are going to need to happen. And I think what does leave you a little bit optimistic about OU's chances of being able to contain Ewers is the fact that he's not nearly as much of a rushing threat as Adrian Martinez or Max Duggan was. So in that you're already, I hate to call it an easier draw, but there's less you have to worry about in terms of the different ways he can burn you at the quarterback position. Here's what needs to happen for Oklahoma in order to be able to contain Quinn Ewers and curtail his impact on the football game from the quarterback position. One, you're not going to be able to commit stupid penalties in the secondary, i.e. Woody Washington tackling a receiver. That can't happen. You can't give Texas 3 yards. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you're going to have to make an effort to shut down the tunnel screen, because my goodness, TCU could have run a tunnel screen on every single play Saturday and put up just as many yards as they did.
Yeah.
And you think back to, what was the first play that Texas ran last year in that football game?
Tunnel screen.
Tunnel screen
Well,
went for a 75-yard touchdown.
It was a pop screen. It was a pop screen.
Okay,
actually.
Sure. Regardless, it was a screen pass that went for a 75-yard touchdown because Oklahoma couldn't tackle. And that's been the bugaboo on in the last couple of weeks too. You throw a screen pass on Oklahoma, they're going to miss a tackle. You got to be able to close out quickly. Not just make the tackles, but know how to miss them, which is something that Venables and this coaching staff have harped on in the past. Knowing that if you're going to miss, where you need to miss in order to funnel a guy back towards your teammates.
Outside shoulder.
An opportunity to finish things off. So that's going to be crucial because Texas has quite a few playmakers that can make guys miss in the open fields and that are going to be dangerous in the screen game if you don't execute well. So for me, I think those are the first two things that come to mind. Don't commit stupid penalties on downfield throws and be able to shut down screens. I would say the third thing, and it's very basic. Like, this is the most surface level observation imaginable, but you have to be opportunistic. And when I say that, what I mean is you can't have a guy like Deshaun White get a pick six dropped in his lap and all of a sudden it goes right through his hands and ends up a completion. That can't happen. If you get an opportunity to get two hands on the football, you got to catch it. If you get an opportunity to turn the tide and change the momentum of this game with a turnover, you're going to have to capitalize, because we've heard all week from coaches and players how much more momentum means in this particular context, in this particular environment at the Cotton Bowl, because you can feel the pendulum swing in a quite literal sense, right? Because you got one half of the stadium that's decked out in burnt orange and one half in crimson. So that momentum and the energy in that building will quite literally go back and forth and back and forth. And so as much as momentum factors into college football on any given Saturday, on this particular Saturday, it matters that much more.
Right. Well, people are like, I don't know where they get this saying that somebody said Davis Bevel was horrendous, Brandon. Like I said that Davis Bevel was good last week. Like, I think we both said that he was pretty bad. No. It's like, that's pretty, I think that's an obvious statement, right, Parker? Like,
yes.
I don't know. I think for me, you have to make Texas, number one-dimensional, and whatever that means you have to do defensively to do that, whether it's, shut down Hudson Card or Quinn Ewers, or get after Texas in the run game with Robinson. I think that's probably the first thing. Like, you've got to make them one-dimensional, because the second you can make them one-dimensional, that's where Venables is at his best, because then he can basically pin his ears back and play around with the defense or with the opposing offense and start messing with them with different looks, different blitzes, switching things up pre and post snap, and doing all the things that he's been known for the last 15 years or so, since 2006, 7, whenever he really started revamping Oklahoma's defense and really making it really intricate. I think number 2, confidence. I think confidence is the key here. It's a big stage, like you said, Parker. That stage that those kids are coming out on, if they come out even anything question in their head, it could get nasty. It could get nasty because if things start to snowball real quickly, I don't think this team has the mental fortitude that last year's team did, because I don't think they have the leadership. And when I say the leadership, talent leadership, there's not a Nick Benito, there's not a Delarian Turner-Yale, there's not an Isaiah Thomas, there's not a Perrin Winfrey waiting in the wings to get everybody psyched up and to make big plays when they need to be made defensively. Now, I'm not saying there's not talent, because there's a lot of talent on the team, but experienced talent is lacking on this team. And those are two completely different things. So I think there has to be some confidence. I think they've got to be able to withstand the punches from Texas and punch Texas back in the mouth, because if they can do that and say they get on a run where they score 14 points on Texas, there's a chance that Texas goes, oh no, here we go again. Here we go again.
Yeah.
Because remember, Oklahoma's won 16 of 22 games against them since 2000.
Well,
this is
you got to think about what happened last year too, because
right. That's what I'm talking about.
There was,
yes.
If there was one kick in the groin that's going to reverberate at Texas for a long, long time to come, it's last year's Red River Showdown. And so if you start to sense the same vibes in the exact same game, in the exact same venue against the exact same team, you can get them to fold. You can. Right. But it is imperative to me that you score first. You got to set the tone early. You got to set the pace of the game. You got to establish the early momentum, because this team is not engineered to rally from a 28-7 deficit like last year's team could. That's just not going to happen. If you get down 28-7, you're not coming back. So you're not going to be able to get away with mailing it in the first quarter the way you did a season ago. But again, if you establish the tempo in the early stages of this football game and you get Texas on the ropes early on, they're going to get down on themselves. They will.
Yep.
And we talk about lack of mental fortitude with Oklahoma. I promise you, Texas is symptomatic of the exact same thing. And there are a lot of similarities in that regard. One of the things that I think you mentioned that deserves to be rehashed, Brandon, and it's something that we probably have not talked enough about this year. This feels very 2020 in the sense that you don't know who that emotional leader is. Because if you rewind to 2019, it was Kenneth Murray. It was Kenneth Murray.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. And 2018, Kyler had a more subdued style of leadership, but you didn't question that it was his team. And Baker was the guy before that. In 2020, until Ronnie Perkins came back, I think everybody was kind of uncertain as to who that guy was for Oklahoma. And that's part of the reason why they struggled in the early stages of that year. And I think in 2021, you just kind of got by.
Right.
They really, and we heard Brent Venables talk about it at his press conference, the fact that he said, look, last year we played, and he said, speaking of Oklahoma, even though he was on staff at Clemson a year ago, he said last year's Oklahoma team played 6 one-possession games and 7 that took, and I quote, an act of God to win, that being Kansas. And it did take an act of God to win that game. So again, if you look back at last year's 11-2 record, that's an 11-2 record that just as easily could have been 8-5, 7-6. So again, that leadership wasn't as conspicuous in 2020 and 2021 as it was in years past. And you kind of get the same sense in 2022. And I know Justin Broyles tries to be a leader on the defensive side of the ball. And He's the elder statesman. He's the guy that's been there the longest. But to be honest, man, he hasn't done enough on the football field to be able to command the type of respect that Kenneth Murray commanded, because Kenneth Murray was an alpha dog in every sense of the word. Yeah, he was an emotional leader, but he had everybody's admiration because he was a force between the hashes.
Yep.
Can't say the same for Justin Burles right now.
No, I think if anybody's going to be the emotional leader on this team, I think, like, who would you pick? I mean, honestly, like, I'm trying to like wrap my head around it. And
you got to
Marvin Mims has got to be one of them. Like that's a given. But he's not. That's not who he is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what makes it difficult. You have to look for a guy who's an alpha dog in terms of his play on the field and an alpha dog in terms of personality. Marvin Mims is a tremendous football player, but he doesn't have that personality.
Yeah, I think it has to be somebody like an Ethan Downs or Reggie Grimes and Jalen Redmond doesn't have that type of personality either, or a David Agwebu. Like, I think those are the three defensively. Woody Washington, maybe, I think. And obviously his play, people don't know if they even listened or anything like that, or you're not know you inside a VIP, you don't know this, but that dude played with basically one leg last Saturday. He had a deep thigh bruise, didn't practice all week, came out there and tried to do his best on Saturday. He had a rough day. The whole team had a rough day, but I mean, he was battling and doing everything he could. Braden Willis, I think, that's got to be the other vocal leader, but he just doesn't seem like the raw, get up there and scream in your face type guy. And I think that's what they're looking for. And I think that's got to be somebody like Eric Gray or even a Dillon Gabriel. If Dillon Gabriel can get them to somehow do that, and he can come across that way, I think that's who he's got to be. Man, my lights are killing my eyes right now. Just killing my eyes. What do you think the score is going to be? Like, if you had to predict, let's do two scores: one with Dillon Gabriel, one without.
Oh, see, with Dillon Gabriel, I think they win the football game. I do, and am I? Look, am I? I don't know, man. Maybe that's just emotional rhetoric at play.
Billy Bowman, that's a good one. Yeah, Billy Bowman.
Yeah, Billy Bowman. But
leader, yeah.
I think if you get Dillon Gabriel back, man, something tells me this team is going to come out inspired on Saturday, one way or another, whether they've got Dillon Gabriel or not. That said, playing inspired only puts you in position to win if you have Dillon Gabriel at quarterback, in my eyes. Because if you're rolling with Davis Bevel or General Booty or Nick Evers, I'm sorry. Like, none of those guys are going to win you the football game on Saturday. I don't see how that happens. And so with Dillon Gabriel, I would pick Oklahoma. I would pick them 34-31. Without Dillon Gabriel, it has the potential to get very ugly. Very ugly. Because we've talked all week and kind of speculated about who might eventually get the nod at quarterback if Gabriel's unavailable, and how short the leash might be for whoever the starter is if Gabriel is unavailable. But at the end of the day, man, Davis Bevel was QB2. Davis Bevel was the guy they turned to when Dillon Gabriel had to leave that game against TCU. Davis Bevel was the guy that they had the most trust and belief in based on what they'd seen from him over the previous 6 months. If that's how substantial
shaking my head for a reason.
Yeah. If that's how substantial the gap is between Dillon Gabriel and everybody else on the roster at the quarterback position, OU's not putting up a whole heck of a lot of points on Saturday. Sans Dillon Gabriel. They are not.
Yeah. So Here's the thing, man. I said I wouldn't say this publicly, but I'm going to say it now. Parker,
Here
you
we
know what
go.
I'm going to talk. You and I have already talked about it, and you kind of agreed with me just because of how weird this game is. Everybody has written off Oklahoma, with or without Dillon Gabriel. They are written off nationally, locally, with the fans, with the administration at the university. Everybody's written them off. The only people that have any belief that they have any sort of chance to do anything are those 100 players or whatever that are in the Switzer Center in that locker room each and every day and out there practicing together. Now, I think there's a lot of things that we have to talk about as far as who's going to play and who's going to do this and who's going to do that. But frankly, we don't know. And let me rephrase that. Parker and I know a lot, but we aren't going to be the ones to say it because that is how you get cut off.
Yep.
From knowing any source of information. Promise you this. Like if we could say things, we would, but this is one of those games where you just keep your mouth shut and you just let things go and let things play out come kickoff. But everybody's written them off. And every time somebody's written somebody off completely in the OU Texas matchup, whether it's OU or Texas, what happens? What happens? You can go back to 1996 or 97. I can't remember which one it was.
96.
I think it was 96. Oklahoma's 0-4. They are god awful. Just atrocious. James Allen, the year before, he gets met by Stonewall, right? Was like Stonewall was his last name, right?
I don't know. I wasn't
And
alive then. I just remember 1996
fair.
was the year they won
Thank
when they
you.
were 0-4.
Thank you. Thank you, Parker. Anyways, wow, I want to appreciate you on that one. But yeah, what a jerk. So yeah, and they go into overtime. That was the year that Darrell Jackson made a big punt return. That was the year that Joseph Fuente hit Darrell Jackson in the back left part of the end zone on an out or corner route. And that was the year that James Allen broke the plane in overtime and didn't get stuffed on basically the same misdirection play that they ran the year before. In 2013, Texas comes in after just getting walloped. I think they're 3-2, just like Oklahoma is now. Oklahoma is like top 10 team in the country, just beat Notre Dame, looked like they were going to be world beaters that year. And Texas just annihilated them. 2015, Oklahoma comes in, top 10 team in the country, looking like they were going to be one of the playoff teams, which they end up being. And they kind of overlooked a really bad Texas team. Charlie Strong, Texas beats Oklahoma. 2018, both teams are good. I think Texas had 1 or 2 losses that year, right? Yeah, I couldn't hear you. They had 1, right?
Yeah, sorry,
Correct?
1 loss.
They had 1 loss. Digger the kicker, 2018. Oklahoma made a valiant comeback, tied the ball game up, gave up the 50 whatever yard field goal or 40 something yard field goal, whatever it was, to win the game. Digger the kicker. I say that in 2020, same thing. Oklahoma comes in 3-2. We're 2-2. I can't really remember exactly. I think we're 2-2. And they had lost to Iowa State and K-State. Nobody expected Oklahoma to be that great in that game. Everybody kind of thought Texas was looking better than Oklahoma at that point. And Oklahoma gets down, comes back, goes to overtime with a pass from Spencer Rattler to Drake Stoops, and then eventually they win the ball game. So my point is that anything can happen in this game. That being said, I'm picking Texas. With Dillon Gabriel, I'll pick Texas 37, 35. Without Dillon, 38-17.
See, I didn't even bother attaching a score to the without Dillon Gabriel hypothetical.
No, I just think that because I think Oklahoma will score. I think I don't think Texas defense is good enough to just shut them completely down. I don't think anybody's defense is going to just shut them down as long as they don't kill themselves with penalties. And I think that's something we all forgot. Like Oklahoma had almost 100 yards in penalties against TCU. They would start drives again, get going. And there were a couple big plays called back for just stupid things like hands to the face or illegal man downfield or anything, like really stupid things off big plays that cost Oklahoma offensively and in turn basically shut down the drive. So if they can stay away from those things, even with Davis Bevel or General Booty or Nick Evers, I think they can make it somewhat respectable, like 21 points without Dillon Gabriel. I think Oklahoma fans would take that, honestly. I think they would. I think they'd walk away going, all right, maybe things are starting to get back on track a little bit, and maybe they go in and beat Kansas next week. I don't know. But I there's part of me that wants to pick Oklahoma to win just because but at some point Texas has to beat Oklahoma, right? Like some point the streak has to end.
Sure.
And sure. Why not without Dillon Gabriel or with a beat up Oklahoma team with Dillon Gabriel? Like if you're going to do it, this is the year to do it because they better get their punches in now because with what Oklahoma's doing on the recruiting trail and what Venables is probably going to do on the transfer portal, I would get your punches in now and your kicks in now because it's probably not going to happen very much more.
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
Before we close out talking recruiting here and going through some of the key names on the visitor list this weekend, Brandon, I want to remind everybody who's watching, if you're not already subscribed, go subscribe. 60% of the people that watch on a weekly basis are not subscribed to the channel. And look, you subscribe. It's a very easy way to make sure you don't miss any of the content we send your way. And we have content every single day of the week. So we are constantly pushing stuff out there for you. Got a preview of the Red River Showdown tomorrow coming with one of our counterparts on the Texas side of the 24/7 Sports Network, Horns 24/7. So I'm going to sit down with Hudson Standish tomorrow morning to preview this game from every angle. Not going to want to miss that. Obviously, we'll have more pregame stuff coming your way, pregame podcast Friday, and then Saturday, we got you covered wall to wall from the Cotton Bowl. So that's just one example of what you get on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis on the OU Insider on 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. So again, if you are not subscribed, it helps us out. It helps you out. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. We've had literally thousands of new subscribers since the season began. So jump on the train. Promise you will enjoy what you are fed here on the channel. But
somebody just said, don't, if you want my subscription to this channel, don't pick Texas, dude.
Well,
what do you want us to shove? You want us to shove sunshine up your butt? Like
I picked honestly? Oklahoma. I picked Oklahoma. I'm operating under the assumption that Dillon Gabriel plays. This might be the last time all year that I pick Oklahoma at this rate, but we're going to roll with them for one more week under the assumption that Gabriel's taking the snaps. So, Brandon, while I deal with my
I'll get
camera
to
issues momentarily, why don't you go ahead and dig into the visitor list there?
All right. Well, we're going to have the vast majority. I don't want to throw out like a lot of big names here just because Parker and I have worked hard on this and we have VIP members and this is basically for VIP members. But we're going to dive into things that we've talked about and said, in previous weeks of players that are going to be there. So if there's a big name that we haven't discussed, we're not going to throw it out there. So just know there's going to be some names on here. You're going to have questions. And if you want those, you got to go to OU Insider VIP for those because This list is long and distinguished. I can tell you that. So obviously, commitment wise, Sammy Omasigo, Jaquaze Petaway, Makari Vickers, Eric McCarty. I know that Jacoby Johnson's trying to get up there. Joshua Bates will be there. Anthony Evans will be there. Jackson Arnold will be there. His teammates, we've discussed this already on this board or on this live show, and Ryan Yates, Peyton Bowen, Eli Bowen will be there as well. But like, I don't want to dive too deep into this, Parker, just because, that's for our VIP members. But that's a great list to start. I'm just going to tell y'all, that's a great list to start. And there are more 5 stars. I promise you that. There are more 5 stars on this list.
We will have the running list posted later tonight on OUinsider.com. Yes. So stay up for that if you're a VIP. If not, now would be a good time to jump over there and sign up for 30 days for just $1 with your trial run.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing, man. Everybody that thinks that this recruiting class is just going to go in shambles if Oklahoma goes 7-5 or 6-6 or 5-7 or 8-4 or whatever, it's not. This is year one. And programs like Oklahoma notoriously will get the benefit of the doubt with new coaching staffs in year one. Now, you may have a few fall here or there, but for the most part, this class will still be top 10. And they will still go out and get big-time transfers, because when you look at the grand scheme of things, kids don't look at it like fans do. I'm telling you, they do not look at it like a fan. A fan sees it like, oh, my gosh, all these kids never going to want to play for Oklahoma. A player looks at it and they're like, these dudes are trash. I'm going to go play, and I'm going to get to play early. Like, that's just their mentality. I'm not saying that OU players are trash. I'm just saying that's how players look at other players when they see losses. That's just a fact. So this actually might help Oklahoma with a few big name guys moving forward, because they trust what BV is going to do. They know notoriously when Brent Venables shows up to a place, year one defensively kind of can be rough. 1999 wasn't the best for Oklahoma. Yeah, they went 7-5, but they got better every year under John Blake. They started out 3-8, then they went 4-7, then they went 5-6. Stoops' first year, they went 7-5. That was the natural progression. So there wasn't anything great that Stoops did year one. Oklahoma blew a bunch of big games because the defense blew a bunch of plays. They were susceptible to the big play in 1999. In 2000, they fixed all of it because all those players had their second year underneath the system. They got better under Mike Stoops and Brent Venables. Fast forward to Clemson in 2012. They were ranked like 65th, 55th. I can't remember. They weren't a top 50 defense in the country. They gave up points and they gave up yards. But guess what happened in 2013, 2014, 2015? They were the best defense in the country. So he has a track record of this. So give it time. And Levy has a track record of being one of the best offenses. And I think Oklahoma is still ranked in the top 15 offensively in the country right now. So they're not bad. Like, things are still, I think things will get better as the season goes on. But I also think that how Oklahoma's played, Parker, will help Oklahoma on the recruiting trail as well. It'll hinder them with some, but it's going to help with others, in my opinion. You agree with that?
No, I do. I agree wholeheartedly. And by the way, if you want reason to believe that this thing isn't just going to fall apart for Oklahoma down the stretch in 2023, and the tweets that you saw from guys like Dalen Smothers and Logan Howland and Eric McCarty and Makari Vickers weren't evidence enough, hey, those of you at OUinsider.com that already are VIPs know that we had quotes up last night from the lone defensive 5-star in Oklahoma's class talking about how he doesn't got any plans to go anywhere but Oklahoma. So you look at the big names right now in this class, nobody seems to be in an all-fire hurry to start looking at contingency plans or escape routes.
Yeah, people are asking. They're like, yeah, Well, people are saying like, "Oh, have you watched the team, Mr. D? Have you this team? They were at least competitive in year one under Stoops. They were in some games. They were, but they also blew massive leads, like massive leads. Like that's on the defense more
Was
than
that the
anything
year
else.
they led Texas 17-0?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
So there you go.
And like the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. I'm trying to look up the OU football that year, but I mean, look, even in 2005, which this team kind of reminds me of 2005, they weren't competitive a lot in 2005. They
No,
weren't
they were not.
competitive at UCLA. They weren't competitive with Texas. They weren't competitive in several games. They got their butt kicked in several games. Okay. But they came back 2006, 2007, 2008, and were downright nasty. And so you sometimes you got to take your bumps. And unfortunately, that's kind of, it looks like that's what's going on this year. Nobody saw that coming. I know none of us saw it coming. I agree. Um, yeah, I mean, they were competitive in 99, 100% competitive. I get it. 2005, they were not. 2009, they were not sometimes. It's just their defense was really good. But remember, they went down to Texas Tech in 2009 and just got spanked. I remember that because I had the flu that day. I was miserable watching that game. I felt just about as sick watching that game as my body did naturally from the flu. So, yeah, it happens. Like Oklahoma just hasn't put up with that type of stuff in a long time. So fans don't know how to react. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's new.
Yeah.
What do you think this? Let's say they go 6-6. Let's say worst comes to worst, they go 6-6. Okay.
Okay.
And no, we don't think they're going to go 6-6, folks. 7-5, yeah, maybe 6-6. I don't see. I know that's not much better, but still. Where do you think the recruiting class ends up?
In the 5 to 8 range. That's what I put it at. I think you had a real legitimate shot at number 2 with DJ Hicks in the class, but with DJ Hicks not in the class, that kind of puts a damper on the ceiling. So I would say they could crack the top 5. They could. And a lot of that is contingent upon what happens in Peyton Bowen's recruitment. But with or without Peyton Bowen, I think they're in the 5 to 8 range right now.
How much do you think I agree with you, by the way. I think, yeah, I'll go 4. I'll go 4 to 8. Yeah. I don't think they get much higher than 8. So, how much do you think the Texas A&M stuff that's going on and everybody's making fun of and the cheer squad and the yell leaders and all that type of stuff, how much do you think players look at that and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to go there? I know one that told me that straight up, but
I mean, when you're talking about Texas A&M, there are other things to look at that override.
no, I get that. No, you
Of the
understand
Aggie
that.
yell.
I get that. I get that. But still, sometimes that doesn't even, what you're talking about doesn't make up for
Sure.
the awkwardness of some of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So you don't think it plays much into it?
Not significantly. I think what's going to play much more into it is what happens the rest of the season for Texas A&M, because there's a very good chance they end up 6-6,
4-8,
even 5-7.
They get into 4-8, honestly. Like I was looking at their schedule, like there's no real one. There's only one true like win left on their schedule.
Yeah.
UMass, yeah.
Every other game's going to be a challenge for them. It absolutely
And
will.
I was talking to some people about South Carolina today that would know. Probably know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Had a long conversation with that person. And let's put it this way. They are still very tied into the University of Oklahoma and all that type of stuff. they think what's going on in Oklahoma, everything's going to be just fine soon. Like they still wholeheartedly believe that. They know, they see it. But I think it would be interesting. Obviously South Carolina has Kentucky this week. Gonna be a tough game, but they got A&M after that at home. And wouldn't that be kind of crazy if Rattler and Beamer and Stogner all went out and took care of business first? Yeah, I guess, huh?
Oh,
would be interesting. Yep. Anyways, all right. I think that's enough for this, right? I think we're good on this. So Texas talk.
Yeah, I would say that about brings us up to speed on everything. Again, before Brandon goes into the OUinsider.com VIP, what's the word? Spiel. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you're still tuned in, helps us out, helps you out. You're not going to miss a thing. At least one video every single day, usually multiple. So throwing all kinds of content your way if you want to stay in the know with OU football and recruiting. This is yet another outlet where we are throwing plenty of content your way on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no. First off, shout out to Ricardo LeBlanc. Haven't done that. That's on me. Just kind of everywhere right now. Rattler is not playing very good, but his offensive line has been downright atrocious. And you talk to anybody around that program, and they will tell you that dude has had no time to do anything. So anyways, if you want to sign up for OUinsider.com, go ahead and do so, please. We've been growing. Even during this downtime, we've grown because we keep putting information out for you guys, whether it's team injury information, whether it's behind the scenes info of what's going on, whether it's recruiting information. We have recruiting lists going up that's going to be very in-depth. 5 stars are going to be on there. We will keep following the David Hicks deal. And with my relationship with all that, we will have some insight. So it's $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards. And then, or you can do 1 year right now, 30% off, $75 gets you 1 year, gets you all of 24/7 sports access, which means you can go check out A&M. You can go check out USC, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. It doesn't matter. You pick a school and you can go see how they're recruiting or what they're doing against common recruits that Oklahoma is going after, or what their feeling is. So you can kind of stack that stuff up and get a good gauge on where you feel that recruitment's going. You don't have to just count on me and Parker. You can count on other insiders. You can count on Steve Wiltfong, Brandon Huffman, Greg Biggins. All those guys bring constant information to our site on a daily basis. And Parker and I and Joey bring constant team and recruiting news to you all on a daily basis. Right now, I got a chat going right now that I think it's almost like 20,000 views and I don't know, some 100 something question and answers going, 100 plus. So we're still going to have that going. Oh, and we're giving away 2 OU Texas tickets to VIP members. We're going to start the drawing tomorrow at noon. Is the entry? The entry will be tomorrow at noon. You'll have 45 minutes. You'll have 12 to 12:45. And then after that, I'll shut it down. And we'll do the drawing. We'll announce it later on that afternoon who the winner is. And you guys get to go to the OU Texas game. The kicker is the tickets have to be used because this is my family's tickets. Like I'm doing it as a thank you to our members. So if they're not scanned, I won't be very happy about it because my parents and everybody get points for all that stuff. And they've been willing to donate the tickets to OU Insider. And in turn, you guys get seat. And they're in section 1, so they're really good seats. So anyways, yeah, we're going to be doing that. So if you want to join, give us a shot. Put your name in the entry for it and see what happens. You never know. It's a random drawing. You never know if you're going to get lucky. If you don't get lucky, you still get lucky because you get OU Insider information every day from Parker and me. How about that? That's some good old luckness right there. So, all right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day.